So welcome back to the Bootroom Podcast. Today, Harry Hennings is, of course, alongside me again.
Absolutely, let's go, yeah.
And of course, we have a special guest in the studio, Hugo Langton. Welcome.
Hi guys, thanks for having me along.
No worries. So obviously your career is incredibly interesting. From club to club, we're going to go through.
Thanks.
And speaking about your career, all the way up to Aldershot now.
Sure.
But we always start off with your early days. So like, who got you into football?
Myself, really. You know, like when you were at school, in the playgrounds. So I'm talking in the late 70s here, that's my age, isn't it? But yeah, just played football at the playground and then you just went from there. And, you know, I think it's a lot of people will tell you when they're young kids, you know, you just either automatically have a love for having the ball at your feet or you don't, wasn't it? So I'd say probably in the playground, yeah.
Who was your idol growing up then? Like, who was a player that you sort of modelled your own game on or someone you looked up to?
There's a few things to answer on that question. I mean, like, I was, as a kid, and I was a Gillingham fan, and the first game of football I went to watch was Gillingham play Walsall, and they lost 3-1, but they had Tony Cascarino playing up front, and I was a number 9. So Cascarino became my initial hero. You know, and I used to sit and watch what he'd do on the pitch. I never really followed the ball. I just used to watch him for 90 minutes as a 8-9-year-old. I was fascinated with Ian Rush. I could see a little bit on the telly when Liverpool on the telly, again, the number 9. But one of my most abiding memories as a kid of any player was in the World Cup 1986. I was probably the only person in England who did this. But when Maradona went through and scored that second goal against England, I stood up clapping, just went, wow. And the next day when I went to school and in the playground, you know, I was Maradona, and as you can imagine, all my classmates tried to kick the hell out of me.
Yeah, that rings some bells. So your career is quite interesting because you never really played up to like a high standard. I think that's fair to say. No,
well, listen, in my teens and stuff, you know, I played as back then there wasn't really so much academies. I played for my district, I played for my school, my club, my county, all that sort of stuff. But you know, I've alluded to you in the past where I came from a family that I've got 3 older brothers and sisters, and my family was quite academic, with me being the exception. So my mum and dad, you know, they had good intentions, but for them it was, you know, football wasn't a future, and they put a lot of barriers in my way, if I'm honest with you. You know, I don't blame them for that. It's life, isn't it? So yeah, then when I left home, you know, I moved to Portsmouth when I was 17, 18, so I was just playing around there. And then I was a hod carrier, and I got badly injured, and I could never recover quickly enough to try and play any sort of games. I could play once a week, and that was about it. So, but yeah, it's weird looking back at it. Would I change things? Of course I would, you know. But it is what it is. I have no regrets. I would have liked to have played more football, but I didn't. So here we are.
Did you find it harder to balance sort of football around school if you come from an academical family?
No, not at all, because I had 0 interest in school. Okay. So I was only interested in football. So so that was a bit of a daily fight with my family, you know. So because look, they have their own values and principles, and they valued education very highly, you know. And you know, my dad's no longer with us, and my mum is. And my dad, to be fair to him, in his later years, he did say to me, you know, we should have listened to you and encouraged you more with your football. So, which was the nicest thing for him to say. But everything happens for a reason, really, doesn't it? So, yeah. I'm not one of these people who sits at home going, if only, you know, because some things were out of my control at that age. Now I'm in control, so I've got no excuses anymore. You know, that's how I look at it. But when you're growing up, you know, my parents obviously trying to shield me from whatever, and they wanted me to have a career where, you know, I wouldn't have any money worries or things like that. But listen, it just wasn't for me. I tried loads of different things. It just wasn't for me, and they'll tell you, all my family will tell you that, you know, I'm just football, rightly or wrongly. Yeah. Rightly, I reckon.
I think so as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for you then, I suppose you mentioned that there was a bit of a regret that you didn't quite push on with what you were doing in football, playing on the pitch. Do you ever sort of take the step back and think to where you could have got? Where do you think you could have got?
Well, I don't know. But listen, the best way to answer this question, right, is that I say to players that I work with, particularly when they start getting older, into their 30s, and some of them start thinking about their coaching badges, some don't. But the ones that do, I say, go and get them done. Doesn't mean you can be a coach now, you know, but play for as long as you can, as high as you can, until your legs say no more, whether that be in the Football League, the National League, or Step 5, just if that's your thing, just don't regret things, because I've seen players over the years where I think to myself, when you retire, or you know you're too old to play at a good level, you're going to regret some stuff, you know, and I find that quite sad, just on the back of my own story, as it were, because let me put it this way: I played in the game actually last year at Gillingham. I had a phone call going, "Oh, there's a charity thing going on. We need a player. Do you want to play?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And my wife said to me, "What are you doing?" She said, "You're going to be probably the oldest bloke there, and you won't be able to walk for 2 weeks." But you know what? She was right. But I just wanted to have that feeling of playing again. So I look at it now, saying the last game I ever played was at Gillingham, and I scored. We won. So
Did you celebrate?
Well, not really, because there was nothing really to celebrate. I was just doing my job as a striker, right? So
That's fair enough.
Yeah, and it's not as though it was a huge occasion or anything, was it? It was a charity thing, but it was nice, So I can say that the last game of football I ever played was at the Gills, so I'll take that.
Absolutely. So what's your advice then to us as like a younger sort of audience? And would it just be to take every chance you can, just do it? Because as I say to Jamie sometimes, that you only live once.
Yeah, of
He
course.
says that to me quite a lot.
Yeah, of course, and don't be afraid to think for yourself. Don't try not to be influenced by others. Try and be different, be objective. I've always, even from when I was a young kid, even at school, I always wanted to be. I never wanted to be like the same as everybody else. I wanted to wear different trainers. I wanted to listen to different music. All that sort of stuff. And I remember as a kid, my mum bought me some Reebok trainers, and they were lovely. I've gone into school, and within a week, over half my class had them, so I put them in the bin because I didn't want to wear the same trainers as everybody else. I think as a football coach, I try to be very different to somebody who has the same title as me, because it's very easy to go on your coaching courses and go on do your B license and your A license and just live by the book, and I see so many coaches, they do, I could go to watch any coach today, tomorrow, whenever, and they're all just doing the same thing, just obviously with their own slightly different take on it, but it's all the same thing, and it's just like, come on, try and be a bit different. So I've always tried to be, to the extent where I've tried to put as many strings to my bow as I can, but where I've tried to be a little bit more unique is to put myself in the middle of the coaching staff and the medical staff, things like that, and I try my best to, in an objective way, to not just help the players, but look after them, whatever club I'm at. So, and the content I try to deliver, the way that I speak to the players, it's just to try and just be a little bit different to everybody else, because that's just who I am.
So how did you glide into the coaching side? 2011 with Horsham.
Well, no, I actually started before then. So when I obviously I couldn't keep playing football, I moved to London, and in the early-ish 2000s, and I was still able to play once a week. So I used to play on a Thursday night in Bermondsey, in a league. There's a guy there. He used to play for Charlton called Leroy Ambrose, and he used to referee the games. And I played centre half, because I knew I kind of had to, because I could talk and help people, right? And he kept saying to me, "Go and do your coaching badges. Go and do your coaching badges." So I went and started them, and I started coaching with under 11 girls. And I did under 15 boys, and kind of went on from there. But I'm glad he advised me to do that, because he kept going on at me for a long time to do it. Because he said, when I was playing centre half, obviously I could see the whole pitch. He goes, but the way that I speak to people, he heard what I was saying to my teammates at half time, or little bits of information I was giving them. So he encouraged me really to do that. I hadn't really thought about it till then.
So obviously we take that Horsham was quite a challenging year. So it was quite turbulent management changes. So what's it like, obviously, one of your first major years in coaching, for it to be quite rocky?
Well, look, Horsham. The true story is this, right? There was a vacancy for the manager, right? And I'd been involved in step 4 and 5 at this point, and so I applied for the job. They interviewed me, and I was in the final 2. And I realised who the other guy was, someone that I knew. And they offered him the job, probably based on the fact he had a bit more managing experience than I did at the time. But he rang me and went, "Listen, just be my assistant." I said, "All right." So it was quite interesting, the fact that he was a really good guy off the pitch and away from the football club. Listen, he might hear me say this, I don't know, and I don't mind if he does, because I'll say it to him as well. But I thought the way that he managed a football club wasn't great. And I'm not saying when I took over I was any better, but what I'm trying to say is that, when you question things, which is good, or I'd be driving home and I'd be going, "Oh, I'm not sure about that," and stuff, And it just felt all the time there was a lot of stress around the place. And it was a tough job, because they're a good football club, Horsham, but they didn't have their own home. They didn't have any money. I think I had about £400 or £500 a week to spend on players. Whereas the teams at the top end of the league had 3, 4, 5 grand. So just trying to compete with that, and all I could do was give kids a chance. There was one guy, he's called Ian Varley, he was a centre half, been playing at Sittingbourne. I rang him up and I said, come and meet me for a cup of coffee, which he did, and I had a signing on form for him, and I said, I'm not letting you leave until you sign the form. And he went, okay, how much are you paying me? And I went, 40 quid a week. And he was like, what? He was on more than that. But somehow I convinced him for 40, 50 quid a week to sign. And I actually think he went on to manage them later on, actually, Ian. But it was things like that. He was just having to convince people to buy into you. I had to convince people to keep coming back. So how do you do that? Well, you try and create a good environment. You make sure the training sessions are challenging and enjoyable. And so, yeah, I think it was almost like, and I've said this a few times, it was like standing on top of a building on a really windy day trying to pee off it. That's what the job was. But listen, I knew what it was. It was really, really good for me, to be fair. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And look, listen, Horsham's a different club now, and the manager's a friend of mine. Listen, and they've been brilliant, and I hope they keep going, because it's a great football club. And I'm glad that they've, sort of turned out to be all right.
I suppose it's just the instinct, though, because if you are in that environment pretty often, you know what could be improved and what should be better. Is there any examples of things that you could give us that weren't to the level that they should be?
Well, Horsham, everything, because I couldn't afford players that were good enough for the level. The training facility moved each week. Sometimes I had a third of a pitch, sometimes half a pitch, occasionally a full pitch. It's just, listen, I don't want to sit here and slag it off because it's not fair, because when you go into a job, you know what it is, right? So then you've got a decision whether you take it or you don't take it. And I chose to do it. So it's not fair for me to do that. But what it did, I think it was almost, I kind of look at it a little bit as part of my apprenticeship. Do you know what I mean? And it was, I learned a lot from it. And when I left, it was almost a bit of a relief, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, listen, there's no such thing as a bad experience. It's either you enjoy it or I suppose you learn from it, don't you? So you pick the bits out of it to improve next time.
Yeah. So after that was Thamesmead Town FC, where then you were sort of on a more like the development sort of scheme.
Well, that was different. So because I was those jobs there, they're part-time. And I was offered the chance to open an academy for 16 to 19-year-olds at Thamesmead. And that was quite tough, because when I got the phone call, they're literally just opening it like the next day. Would I do it? And I was like, well, he suited me, so yeah. But, I inherited players that I wouldn't label them as footballers as such. Some of them were. There was no kind of structure. There was no pre-season. The league started the next week. So you realise pretty quickly that maybe initially it's not so much about football. It was more about them as people, if that makes sense, because they all came from the back streets of Woolwich and South East London. They all had not all of them, one or two less so, but most of them came from pretty tough families. Some of them had parents that didn't give a monkey's where they were or had they eaten or things like that, So, and they had some very, very sort of basic human skills. So you realise very quickly that I've got to get this bit right first before I start thinking more about football. We still trained every day and played football because that's what they're ultimately there to do. And you try and help them and put them in some kind of structure and improve them, which did happen, which happened over because it's evolution, right? But the human side of it was way more important than football.
How hard is it to balance semi-pro lifestyle with your whole life as a whole? Like, what did you have to do to balance the books and everything like that? Because obviously your life comes before everything.
Well, not a lot, because I was getting back then I was getting 2 incomes. I also opened up my own football consultancy, which kind of fell apart a little bit in COVID, and I've never really tried to revive it because it's just time consuming. I don't have the same amount of time anymore. But I used to do things where I put on coach education days. So myself with, for example, Wayne Burnett, who's the Tottenham 23's coach now, we'd put on days for people. But I also taught people how to be opposition scouts, and I had built relationships with so many clubs around the country that they'd trust me with their opposition scouting as long as the guys that I trained got to a level. I mean, not everybody does, but you do the course with me, it'd be online. and they go away and practice, and then I give them feedback and the reports, and when they got to a standard that was good enough, then I could give everybody work. So that was pretty cool. So that was from clubs from League One right down to the bottom end of non-league. So yeah, that was good. But yeah, it's a shame that it fell apart. But that's COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to scouting, managing players, what's the main thing you look for in a player? Is it the hard work? Is it discipline? Or is it just having a good mental capacity?
It depends what age you're talking about, right? If you're looking at kids, I think it's too many kids get judged on how big they are or not, right? They don't get judged on their intentions. So me personally, if I was watching, sometimes I'm near where I live and I'm walking around on a Sunday morning with a dog or whatever, and you see a game of football, you stop and watch it, right?
Yeah.
And I can see the best players are often the ones that have the best intentions but can't quite do it. So what I mean by that is that you might have a kid that's so tall, but everything he's trying to play forward, but he just can't quite do it yet. That's fine, but the intention's there.
Yeah.
But everybody just mistakes like what they call pace and power, don't they? That's what they're after. But what will generally happen is that they'll eventually do that over them. But I just think they get a lot of that wrong. But in terms of scouting for a team, well, look, I've scouted. It depends if you talk about my team or if when I'm working for another club. So if I'm working for a club, so for example, when I was at Bristol Rovers, I was their opposition scout, so I'd go and do reports for the first team. But on top of that, I do some player scouting as well. So when you're in that, it's more about understanding what Bristol Rovers, for example, needed at that time. And based on their playing style, what were they looking for in the possession, out of possession, what kind of... There's a lot of things to take into consideration. If a team's playing, say, with a goalkeeper, back three, 4-2-1 with 2 10s and a 9 and 2 wing, well, some wingers probably may not fit the profile of that. Do you see what I mean? So even though you might know this winger's really good, does he fit the team's profile? Probably not, But also with Aldershot, my current role, if I go and watch players, yeah, you're thinking about your own team, your own playing style. I get people that I try not to get too involved in the recruitment. I've got enough to do. There's the manager and the head of recruitment take care of that. So to be fair, they don't get a lot wrong between the two of them. You can't get everything right, but generally get it right.
Yeah. So when you're scouting another team, how long do you spend to scout on the team to get the full profile?
Well, look, it depends. Like for someone like when I was working for Bristol Rovers, I'd probably watch most teams twice. Sometimes home, sometimes away, sometimes both away. In an ideal world, if you're playing at home, you want to watch them away, right? Yeah. Because that's the environment, and they might play a little bit different, be a bit more cautious. I don't know. But in my current role, say at Aldershot, because I take care of also the video clips that we present the players on the next team, so I probably watch 3 to 4 games of the next opponent, and you just look for patterns, right? So and then you get a very clear vision of this team, and then you to put it into a 10-minute presentation from potentially 360 minutes of football. That's tricky, but you've got to put the time in to do that, because there's no way I'm going to stand in front of my players on match day -1 and go, this is them, and then the next day there's something completely different because you haven't done your homework properly. So you can't predict everything. Sometimes teams will change their formation on the day, but generally their playing style remains the same. So I watch currently up to 3 or 4 games per opponent, but I do that off my scout.
So after that was Bromley. Now, I think we'd argue that's quite a successful period at Bromley. 2 years there, National League South, reaching the playoffs. You missed out on promotion, but you still got to a good stage. And then the next year, FA Cup first round, again, promotion to the National League. So obviously that's your first, Bromley are a big club, right? And so how long did it take you to implement your way of football with them?
Bromley was, to be fair at Bromley, there was Mark Goldberg was a manager. Neil Smith was the assistant manager. He's now at Crawley. He went on to manage Bromley. And there was me and another guy called Mark Hammond, who's now the CEO of Bromley. And it was, to be fair, Mark Goldberg had a very clear way that he wanted to play. I want to play like this. He wanted to play with, obviously, the goalie, the 4-4-1-1, and he wanted certain movements, certain things. And that's so when it's like that as a coach and a manager, it was so basic what he wanted. Just because it's basic doesn't mean it's rubbish, because it wasn't. It was so effective because we went to win the league, right? But yeah, it was when you're in an environment like that, it's not difficult. It's a lot easier to go, well, it's so clear what he wants that you've got to go on. So everything that we did on the training ground would be around our playing style, in and out possession. But then also, I took care again of the opposition. So I'd give the information on that, whether it be on the training ground or in a changing room environment, whatever it was. But yeah, it was a good time, and because it was so straightforward, like the end of the first season. But don't forget, Bromley at that time, the previous however many years, were just avoiding relegation. And so when we finished third, we lost to Ebbsfleet on the playoffs, which is disappointing, but it also gives you fuel to come back for more, right? So Mark, to be fair, recruited well, and he recruited very well again in January. Because I remember we played away at Torquay in the FA Trophy, and they beat us 4-0. And on the way home, we sat on the bus around the table, the staff, and Mark said, as things currently stand, we can't win the league. What do we need to do to win the league? So we compiled a list of 3 players that we thought would change it. And to be fair, we went and signed all 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then we went on to win the league, and it was great times.
Yeah.
Great times.
I've not had the so-called privilege to be on Y Scout ever, because of my job, I guess. But could you just explain to everyone what it is? Because I think it's a really powerful tool.
It's useful, yeah. I mean, it's useful for people like me who like watching games, or that's part of your job. So basically, it's a platform where it's a global platform. Your level of subscription allows you to see X amount. But in the National League, you have if you're the home team as well, you have a responsibility to upload your game within 24 hours, I think it is. And then they've got people that will then statistically tear the game apart. How accurate it is, I don't know. I don't think it's 100% accurate what they give you.
So you can see like the stats, if you like.
Yeah. So yeah. I can look at. So we're playing Braintree tonight. I can look back at however many documents on them that I want to, but you can't, because your level of subscription allows you X amount of downloads per month. So basically, it's one of these platforms. The more you pay, the more you get. Right. So it works. But yeah, I've got access to all the games. I think I can watch Premier League, which I don't. But it's also useful for the guys that are looking at footage on players and things like that. So
can't you see in like the Chile 4th division and things like that?
If you subscribe to it, yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and as long as it's on there, as long as they've got an agreement with it, So at a previous club, I had access to the Mexican League and the Argentinian League, and I used to just sit and watch them late at night when I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Oh, you can watch it live as well.
Well, no, it's not. These are all after the event.
Yeah.
So you can't watch it live. Yeah, they'd have to be up within 24 hours generally of the final whistle. But yeah, so I don't know. I spent some time in Mexico, and so I find the league quite interesting. So I'd go and watch it. So yeah.
Obviously, if this app wasn't a thing or tool wasn't available, how much do you think that would differ your ability to be able to like?
Oh, massively. But somebody, listen, this is 2025. If it wasn't Y Scout doing it, someone else would be. There was another company for a bit. I don't know if they still exist, but there was one called Instat that was similar. But Y Scout seems to be the most prominent, the most powerful. But like anything, it costs money.
Yeah.
As it does, and I suppose for the smaller clubs, it's going to be less.
Well, it doesn't go below step 2, I don't think. I think it.
Oh, okay.
National League North and South for this country, anything below, no.
Oh, right.
I don't know why. Maybe there's just not agreements with it, or I think a lot of these clubs lower down, they have VO cameras, don't they?
Yes,
they do.
And they often upload whole games onto YouTube, don't they? If you want to watch them, but.
How much is the first fee? Like the one you'd pay first?
We're interested.
Because it sounds
Yeah.
quite interesting to go
I'm
on.
not. Do you know what? I'm not sure, because I've never had to pay it out of my own pocket. But
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you can haggle.
Oh,
What do
really?
you think? Oh.
Well, listen. It's a bit, if you guys wanted access to it, it's slightly different to
A club
a
wanting
football club with lots of staff wanting access to it.
Right.
So if you said, look, I want a license for 6 months for 2 people, well, we're students. Help us out here.
Say do your research, yeah?
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's worth having.
Absolutely.
But it depends how many games or how many leagues you want to watch.
Of course.
I think
It's an idea, isn't it? Yeah.
If you love football.
Of course. And you were at Chelsea for some time as well.
No,
No?
I wasn't. I went to. I did some coach education days.
Yes,
there.
and-
2 or 3 times a year I went in for a year.
But it's important though to go into these places, environments, and just connect is what we call it, network.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's somebody I knew was working there, and they just wanted to do something different. So they challenged me to come in and challenge the coaches. So that's what I did. I just went in and just, as I said, I like being a bit different. So I put on some stuff that they would never even have thought about or seen.
But Chelsea?
But it was more about, it was like the foundation coaches and some of the academy coaches, but it was more about, all I tried to do was give them some bones and they can put whatever meat they want on it. Just to challenge people's thinking, because I think people don't challenge people enough in football in this country, coaches, from what I can see. Everybody's too busy doing the same thing. When this goes out, I might get hammered for this, and I don't really care if I do, if I'm honest with you. But it's just how I see it, is that people aren't capable of thinking for themselves. They think they're thinking for themselves, but they're not. They'll go to what? Oh, can I come and watch training? Right. So let's just say I go. I don't know. I've been let's say I go into Gillingham, right, and I watch first team training, and I go, oh yeah, I like that. I like what he's doing there. Oh, I like that. Right, I write that down. I'm going to go and do that with my club. But they've got different players, different external factors, different playing style, different this, different that. People will go onto YouTube and see Pep doing something, yeah, or Klopp or whoever doing stuff, and they go, oh wow, I'm going to go and do that with my team. But they don't know how to do it, and they don't understand the context. So this is my point. People don't think enough of themselves, or they don't challenge their own thinking. They don't. Every time I open up LinkedIn or whatever it is, right, and I try not to do it very often, you always see people on there going, oh, I put on a session today, it was superb. You never hear anybody go, do you know what, right, I tried to do this today, and this is what was wrong with it, and it was wrong because of X, Y, Z, so next time I do it, I'm going to change it, and just this bit here because of X, Y, Z. They don't critically evaluate themselves, right? They just, I'm the main man, right? And I'm going to tell the whole world about it, and it's just like, nobody likes to be critiqued. And I understand the world we live in. It's just, I'm going off on a rant here, I know, but it's just, we're just surrounded by people that just seek dopamine all the time, man. They've got to be, how many likes can I get? How many views can I get? It's like, I know I'm an older guy.
You're in the wrong place then.
Yeah, but but I'm talking about people in my position, and coaches and stuff. If you're going to share something I've commented on stuff, right, on LinkedIn, for example, and people don't like it unless you go, I love that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that with my team next week.
Yeah.
But the moment you start asking questions or evaluating something, they get really, really defensive and uncomfortable. So you think to yourself, well, why are you putting it out there then?
Yeah.
So if I was to put something up on social media, I'm hoping for as much criticism as possible.
Really?
Of course, because if you don't get all the criticism, how can you make it better? Or people question it, how can you make it better? I'd rather that than, I'm somebody, I like feedback. I like feedback from my players. I've got no problem with my players turning around to me going, didn't think that should out this morning. I go, why? All right? It doesn't happen very often, but it happens. You go, okay, why? What was wrong with it? And they go, well, maybe if you put that there, that'd be better. And you think, yeah, that's a good shout. So even when I was at Bromley, this is when I realised, I was coming towards a time when I realised I was a really bad coach, by the way. But like everyone else, I thought it was brilliant, right? And they put on these possession things, right? Oh, got to be one touch, got to be two touch. I had a winger called Louis Dennis, right, who went on to other things, right? He turned around to me and went, this is rubbish for me. I'm a winger. I don't want to play 1-2. It's not my job. My job is you give me the ball out there, I take people on and I try and make something happen.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, he's right. So, but again, people use these possession things for a purpose, but the name of the game is to score goals, right? Possession's a tool to help you do that, but we don't think about that. No, we think about keeping the ball. So when people go, we're a possession-based side, okay, that tells me you've got no intention of scoring any goals ever, all right? Whereas it should be an attacking team because you want to attack and score goals. So possession this is where I think coaches get it wrong, but they think possession's the most important thing. No, it's not. It's scoring goals is. That's the aim of the game, right?
There are so many managers now, like Simeone, who doesn't want possession of the ball, but he still finds, like, they beat Madrid 5-2 on the weekend. He had, I think, a 30% possession, but they scored 3 more goals than Madrid. But like he's been doing that for years and years and years.
Yeah, but because that suits him.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I've spent some time at Atletico, and you can tell they're a team that sits in the shadow a bit of Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Because they've got no choice but to. So to have an identity as a football club, theirs is very much, well, screw you, Real. You know, we're gonna feel like the whole world hates us, and that's what they use. So Yeah, they'll take the punches, but then they'll throw bigger punches as they did in that game. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
but there's no right or wrong way to do it. The only stat that matters is the final score.
Yeah, of course.
And
It's so
by the
true.
way, I'll be clear. I'm talking about professional first team football
Yeah.
here. I'm not talking about development football or youth football, where coaches shouldn't judge themselves on whether they win or lose. Sure, the aim of the game is to win,
Yeah.
right? But they shouldn't go home and shout at their family because their under 12s have lost to Real Pingu on a Sunday morning. Do you know what I mean? Which I find quite funny.
Yeah.
What's
Absolutely.
funny is the name Real Bingo. I've never. So you went to Eastbourne, and then again,
Yeah.
I think that was a big step up for you, wouldn't you?
No, listen, I just won the National League South.
Yeah.
And I went to Eastbourne, who were National League South.
But you obviously went there for a purpose. What was the purpose?
Well, I'd left Bromley, and I was out the game, so I was out watching games, and I was at a game somewhere. I think it might have been Lewis, who I ended up at eventually. And the Eastbourne Borough manager, Tommy Widrington, was there. And I didn't really know Tom, but obviously we'd coached against each other in the league. And we just had a chat at half time, and he mentioned he was looking for a coach. I mentioned, well, it's funny that, because I'm looking for a team. So yeah, Tom challenged me. It's almost like his way of giving me a job interview, I think, looking back on it. Meet me at 7:30 in the morning in Eastbourne. So obviously I was there at 7:15. He then challenged me to go and watch a game. They had Maidstone coming up, so he got me a ticket. I went to Maidstone, and I wrote him like a 35-page scout report on Maidstone. So just to show that I'm serious,
35 pages.
Hopefully I kind of know what I'm talking about,
Well, for 35 pages, do you like
Yeah,
think
but
so?
35 pages doesn't guarantee anything. Anyone
Yeah.
can do 35 pages, but it's the detail within them.
Yeah,
what I
exactly.
mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, he gave me the job. So, and this is my 10th year working with Tom, effectively. Yeah, he's a really good guy.
Yes, that's.
I've got to say that in case he's watching.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah.
I'm sure he is.
Hopefully
Oh,
he
yeah,
is.
but
Yeah.
Do you know what a good thing about him is, right? I've worked for loads of different people. But the thing I like most about working with him, we argue a lot. We debate.
Yeah.
We disagree. And I think it's really healthy. But, he's a great friend of mine, by the way, and we mix socially and stuff. But he's the kind of guy that I can go to and say, I've got this thing in my head. It could be a set play, or it could be something to do with training. I'll go, what do you think? Break it. And he'll break it. Or he'll improve it. Go, listen, add this. What about this? What about that? And all of a sudden you've got a better exercise, right? Or a better thing for training, or a better set play. And that's a good thing about him. And he lets you do your job. Not many managers do.
You mentioned set pieces there. I just wanted to touch upon that because I suppose every club has their own way to play set pieces, specifically corners here. Do you ever look at Arsenal and look at Liverpool, look at these sides?
Because what's the point? Because their players are different to my players.
But couldn't you replicate something similar?
I mean, I could if I was lazy. But the best thing to do really is that you watch the next team coming up, right, and you look at what they're good at and what they're not good at. Then you compare it to what you're good at and what you're not good at, and then you figure out, okay, how's the best way for me to try and score a goal here? So the time, for example, at Aldershot 2 seasons ago, every time we put a ball in a box from a corner, direct from the corner, we never got any success ever. So okay, we'll change it, right? We had some really good footballers. Well, let's play short. So I'm not just talking about 1-2 passes here. I'm talking like 7, 8, 9, 10 passes to create a chance. And all of a sudden we started scoring goals. And it was funny because the crowd at Aldershot didn't like it. They used to sing like, put it in the box, and like, you're going, no, because we don't get any success from it.
Yeah.
And then I think they started to realise that if you're a bit more patient with us at corners, we end up creating a chance, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you didn't score every time for them, obviously. But so to answer your question, no, it's just about knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at, and understanding what the opposition are the same.
Welling was up next. Another spell
one?
in the National League, first spell.
I had 3.
Yeah, no. So 17 to 18.
Yeah.
So again, it's a similar club to Eastbourne, right? I suppose a
No.
jump wasn't. Oh no.
Eastbourne was a nice club.
Oh, okay. So Welling
Yeah.
wasn't so good.
Listen, I have a big love-hate relationship with Welling and its supporters, through no fault of my own, I hasten to add. I found it a place where when you're in the football clubs, if everybody is contributing to the same collective intention, whatever that is, promotion, winning the league, staying in the league, whatever it is, right, doing well in cups. As long as everybody's contributing to the same overall thing, then you've got a chance, right? I've never known a football club like Welling where it's just total chaos. There was people there, they're just spiteful people behind the scenes. You know, when people are like, you know, when you walk down the corner, people whispering and that sort of stuff. And look, I don't want to speak ill of Welling because I went 3 times to try and make it.
Spells.
But that was largely down to a guy called Mark Goldberg. But and I've got a lot of love for Mark. But I don't think he was the chairman of the club. He'd been a manager of Bromley, but he was the owner of Welling. And I think the support base and that just completely misunderstood him and his intentions. Yeah, which is a shame because all Mark wanted to do was win.
I wanted to ask about objectives in the season. So you just mentioned there about staying in the league, and we've spoke to some people who have said that there's no objective; they just go and play the football. At the majority of the clubs that you've been at, is there always an objective?
Well, it has to be some kind of intention because otherwise, how are people going to contribute to it, right? So if you look at in our league, you could probably say Carlisle, York City, Forest Green Rovers, to name 3, probably have all got the same intention, which is to get promoted or win the league, right?
Yeah.
Other people's intentions would be, well, can we make the playoffs? Others would be to be in the top half. Others would be not to get relegated. You know, so someone like Truro, their intention is probably to stay in the league, and Brackley, and then build from there because it's a brutal league. So it's very difficult to sit here today and tell you what Aldershot's intentions are because that's not fair on me, right? All I know is that we want to just improve on what we've done before, which would mean a higher place in the league. Obviously, we won a trophy last season, so I can't sit here and go, well, we're going to win it again because you don't know. We got to the semi-final of the Hampshire Senior Cup, so I could say we could try and win that.
Hopefully.
You know, or do a little bit better in the National League Cup. But ultimately, it's all just about pushing forward as much as you can, improving players. Some players, you know, you'll sell, which, you know, some players you'll sign, you develop them, and you sell them for a lot of money. So there's all kinds of different intentions, but ultimately, and this is a proper cliche, we just want to win as many games as we can.
Yeah. So would you say then so on the whole, then every season it's just do a little bit better the next year, and any silverware's a bonus?
Well,
perhaps?
it depends. If somebody turns around and goes, right, you know, there's 10 million quid, right? You're going to go, we should probably win the league with that, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't, then that's potentially you failed, right? All right, you might win the playoffs and get promoted, but if you've got that amount, I mean, like Wrexham, the money that they've been given, their pressure was to keep getting promoted, which, to be fair, Phil Parkinson's done that with Wrexham, right? But he's been extremely well backed. So he should be. They should have done what they've done. So, but it's also easier said than done, if that makes sense. So Phil Parkinson deserves, for me, like huge plaudits because it's not an easy thing to do, managing, coaching, and you know, with the pressure of expectation. So I think generally what happens is that the team with the most money, and you go down to the ones with the least, is roughly how the table ends.
Football Manager is quite an analytic game, right? And we love it around here. So, and obviously you're on Football Manager yourself. So when you play, do you play Football Manager?
But listen, when have I got time to do that?
If you had time, would you play Football Manager? No, you wouldn't.
I'd do it in real life.
Exactly. But would you not sign yourself on Football Manager?
No, because I wouldn't play it. I understand why people play it, by the way, but no, I'm not a game guy.
Is it comparable, would you say, from what you know about it?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm going to probably suggest no because I see people on Twitter going, I've just got promoted to the Premier League with, Tunbridge Angels. So
yeah, unrealistic, I suppose. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because Tunbridge Angels are never going to get promoted in our lifetime. Well, listen, they might do. I don't know why I said Tunbridge Angels, just because it's my local club, but I'd love them to do well, you know. But when someone says I've just won the Champions League with Hyde United, it's like, really? So I'm guessing that's what I've seen.
That's fair enough.
No, it's true.
I suppose, yeah.
I suppose that's part of the challenge of the game, right? Is that you take a small club and can you make it big? And
it's the only reason why I think people would play.
I don't get City.
But you're playing in season 2045, right?
Yeah, I'm in 2030 right now.
Like, people wouldn't play it to sit in the same league for a decade, would they? Like the only reason you play it is to go up. Right?
Yeah.
I get why people play it. But, no, is the answer to your question. And I am aware that I'm on it. Sometimes I get messages from people going, I've just hired you as a manager.
Because I hired you as Everton backroom staff and I got sacked.
Well, there
So I think
you
you're
go.
still at Everton.
Don't hire me.
So Coventry came up for you as like a regional scout, and I think that's quite different to what you were doing before in a way, because you're not on the pitch.
Well, yeah, that was a little bit on the side really, because Tommy Widrington left Eastbourne to become head of recruitment at Coventry, and so it was kind of tied in around the same time I went to my first stint at Welling. But you know, Tom and I had got a strong working relationship where I know he trusts my eye and stuff. So I'd go and, as well as what I did, I'd go and watch games for him as well. Yeah, so as many as I could.
And then, after that was Lewes FC, but there was a bit of an impact from COVID, obviously, which wasn't great. It was curtailed.
Well,
like the season obviously was curtailed,
yeah,
as was the Premier League.
I had a text message late one Saturday night, and I just left my second spell at Welling, and I was watching Match of the Day, and the chairman, a guy called Stuart Fuller, who I knew, sent me a message saying, "Would you consider coming to save our season?" I'm thinking. So I looked at I'd seen they'd lost 6-0 at home to Cheshire.
Oh, wow.
Right, got you. So I messaged him back going, "Ring me tomorrow." And I put, "Sounds like you've had a pint," with a laughing emoji, right? But to be fair, he rang me the next day and he said, "Look, just need some help for the rest of the season. We've just got to make sure we don't go down. Will you come and help?" I went, "That's fine." So I went in, and man, it was complete chaos. Nothing to do with Stuart or anything, but it was just chaos all around the changing room and stuff. And I remember we lost 1-0 at home to Brightlingsea Regent in my third game.
Yeah.
And I got in the car and Stuart rang me. And I remember he said to me, "You all right?" I went, "Fine." I said, "I completely understand the job now. Every problem that I was waiting for had come to the surface. And sometimes you've got to wait. But pretty much I thought everything's come to the surface. And now you think, okay, now I can go to work properly. And I know things that need to be fixed, right?" So, then we got to a point where I remember we'd just beaten Haringey Borough at home 2-1 on a Wednesday night. And then COVID hit us. So my agreement with Lewis was to stay to the end of the season. They then said to me, "Would you stay through lockdown?" So that's fine. And at the end of lockdown, they said to me, "We're going to advertise your job." I went, "Yeah, no problem. You know, thanks anyway." They went, "You're not going to apply for it." I went, "Why do I apply for it? You either want me or you don't, right?" And to be fair, they said, "No, we want you to stay." So I said, "Fine, I'll stay." But my remit was, it's not always about money, but it helps. I didn't have a lot of money. I had probably just under $3,000 a week, right? But my remit was clear, to bring players from the under-18s into the first team. That's fine because there's some good players, but it was always going to take a little bit of time, you know. And we just started to get going. I think I'd taken 10 points out of 12, and then the second lockdown hit. So again, you're like, okay, here we are. And we're coming towards the end of the lockdown, and I had a phone call from somebody who I'd never met, but I'd heard of him, who was very high up in the club, who just went, "All right, mate, don't need you anymore, you can go now," and put the phone down on me. And I thought, all right. I won't tell you what I said to him, by the way, before the phone went down, because that's not fair. You're thinking, well, that's a bit of a weird thing to do. Listen, I had no problem with leaving the club. I was never expected to be there for a long time, but the way that guy rang me, and I'm not going to tell you his name, but yeah, if I ever meet him, I shall let him know in a polite and respectful way.
Yeah, of course.
Is that the background story of football? Is obviously we all think that it's sunshine and rainbows, but I suppose
no. Look, listen, I'm being a little bit over the top with the Lewis fella, right? But yeah, I just found that whole thing a bit untasteful, you know, because you try to be honest with people and upfront with people, and you just ask for the same in return.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't feel that I necessarily was. Listen, I've never have a problem if anybody wants me to hire me or they want me to go. That's the life, right?
Yeah.
And we accept that. You accept that when you do it, when you go into a club, you understand. You know, this could end tomorrow or it may not. So you just got to do your best.
I suppose after COVID, things were getting back to normal, and you went to Kings Lynn for 2 seasons. So for you to go there, but I suppose it didn't quite go to plan in that first year.
Well, no. So what happened was, right? I went back to Welling again first.
Yeah, in the middle of that.
So
yeah.
what happened was Welling lost their manager. Mark Goldberg rang me and said, "Look, can you take training this week, because it gives me a little bit of breathing space to figure out what I want to do." I said, "Okay, no problem." So I went in and took training in the mornings, and then I think it was the third session, Peter Taylor turned up. And I didn't really know Peter, but he turned up. So him and I kind of did the session together. And he said to me at the end of the session, he went, "Listen, I'm going to bring my own assistant and stuff." And I went, "No problem, Peter." I said, "Listen, good luck. I wish you and his name was Junior Lewis. I wish you and Junior all the very best. You turn this around because they were struggling. And Peter went, no, I'd have a chat with Mark, sort something out. I'd like you to stay. And I'm thinking, okay, Welling, love, hate. And I'm thinking, but I quite like to work with Peter Taylor.
Yeah.
So I was at Welling for about 3 months, and Peter was brilliant. What a guy, And as I got to know him, I think it took me a little while to earn his respect, but when I did, he great guy. I could ring him. I ring him now. How's things? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And the guy's in his 70s. He's still managing Canvey Island. He just loves football. Like, he is ridiculously, just want to get out of the house and be football. Whether it's a scout, coaching, managing, just an absolute top guy, right? But I remember it was a Thursday morning, and Tommy Widrington, like these watches, Apple watches, they ring, don't they?
Yes.
Mine's ringing, and it keeps saying it's Tommy Widrington. So I've answered it subtly, and I said, Tom, I'm coaching, I'll ring you later, and I ended the call. After training, I got in my car to drive home, and I rang Tom and went, what do you want? He's gone, I'm on my way to King's Lynn. I went, where's that? He went, Norfolk. I went, what are you going there for? He went, I'm going to go and meet the chairman. I went, why? He went, to become their manager, because Tom was the director of football at Bristol Rovers, but was leaving, right? He said, are you coming? I went, what? He went, are you coming to King's Lynn? I went, have you got the job? Have you agreed the job yet? He went, well, no. I said, well, ring me when you have, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I haven't thought too much more about it. And he rang me in the evening, Tom, and he said, look, I've spoken to the chairman. He wants to speak to one other person in the morning, and we'll see from there. I said, fine, no problem. I'll talk to you tomorrow. So anyway, I've gone to sleep, and I've woken up at 6 a.m, because that's when I get up, right? And I had 25 missed calls off Tom, 1 in the morning. And one of the voicemails was, ring me back, right? So 6 a.m, I thought, fine, so I'm going to ring him. He answered the phone straight away, and I said, what's up? He went, I'm the King's Lynn manager. I went, okay. He went, are you coming? I went, okay. He said, can you get to training today? I went, no. And he said, why? I said, well, because I'm still in Tunbridge. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't get to you till 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
All right. He went, okay. He said, what do you want? So we agreed, and he said, I'll sort that out for you. And I said, all right, well, let me know when it's done, right? And I said, also, I've got to speak to Mark Goldberg, and I've got to speak to Peter Taylor, but I'm not going to do that till you ring me later today. So I'd gone to Heathrow to pick my sister-in-law up, and Tom rang me and went, right, it's all done. So I rang Peter, and I said, listen, I've got an opportunity to go to the National League. And he was like, off you go. Same with Mark, And so the next day, I met the players 1 hour before kickoff, but they had 7 points from 21 games at that point and were nailed on relegation. And to answer your question, we put 30 points on the board and took it to the last weekend. And I think had we been there a couple of games longer, we might have kept them up.
Oh, wow. That's quite an achievement, I think.
It is, right?
Well, yeah, I think so, which is a strange thing to say when you get relegated.
Exactly,
but, yeah, it was a real challenge. But then the following season, we went to Doncaster in the FA Cup and won. We probably should have won the league. I don't mean that disrespectfully to far, but we probably should have done. And great club, great. I loved it up there. Absolutely fantastic place.
Norfolk's a great place.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard it's a good place.
Unbelievable. King's Lynn is a place, fantastic, and they've got some mental supporters, but in a good way. They're the kind of guys that if you're having a meal on a Friday night, they'll try and pay for your meal. That sort
Oh,
of
really?
Oh, unbelievable people. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But the moment you leave the football club, you scum.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I'm joking. To be fair, when we went to Wembley in May, there's about 10 King's Lynn fans come. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, into our little after game pint. Yeah.
No, we've got quite a obsession with the smaller sort of clubs. We went to Wales to watch Merthyr Town play. So
They're a big club in your eyes, apparently.
Absolutely, yeah. So would you recommend that we take a trip to Kings Lynn then?
1,000,000%.
Think
Yeah.
so?
The thing is, when we went to King's Lynn, the very first game we played was against Dover. We won 2-1, and there was 417 people at the game. By the time when we left, there was 2,500 coming through the door.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow. So for you then, Aldershot's now where you are. You call it home?
Well, it has been for the last 120, 30 games.
Yeah, of course. So for you to settle in, I would say you're definitely settled in now. And obviously you're 17th in the National League this season. But I want to talk about last season before then. You mentioned perhaps in the league there was a bit of struggle, but you managed to win at Wembley. So what was that experience like for you?
Well, it was without doubt one of the greatest days of your life. You know, it's the whole build up to it. We had some. We were okay in the league. We had some problems towards the end of the season in the league, which I'm not going to go into and why. But once we played the last league game at home to Yeovil, we beat them 2-1 on a Monday. Then you've got 6 days to prepare for Wembley. And so the build-up was crazy, fun, exciting. You know, the day before the final, we trained at Wickham's ground, and then we went to Wembley on the Saturday just to do the tourist thing. So, you know, the lads got to look around the changing rooms, go out on the pitch, and just get a feel for the place. But then, the next day, you know, you leave the hotel, everyone's in the suits.
Yeah.
You get like what's the word? Like an convoy.
The convoy to the ground.
Yeah.
Well, like an escort sort of
escort,
thing.
yes. Everyone has to get out your way.
Yeah.
But when you go into Wembley, it was exciting doing it the day before. But on the day, you know, and you can see supporters, you can see some people that you know, and you can see families you're going in and stuff. Then it's like, wow, this is good. And we had the England changing room as well, and it was unbelievable. And listen, the game itself, it was so hot. By the way, it's like so hot. So God knows what the players were feeling. But once we scored early in the second half, we kind of felt that
it was all day.
Going to win it, listen, unbelievable. And the next day we had the open tour parade around Aldershot, which was, you know, like the whole town was out. It was absolutely crazy, and it's things that you'll never forget.
I feel like every manager's and players' dream is to play at Wembley, let alone win at Wembley.
Yeah.
So that's got to be a day penciled in.
Well, look, listen, it was interesting because like in the lead up to the game, like I said, alluded to earlier, I started watching Spennymoor off Y Scout, right? I downloaded, I watched the whole games, and I saw something. I saw like they had a problem defending a right wing cross to the back post on the left. You see that, I thought, okay, and then I saw it potentially again. And you think, okay, there's a pattern here. So I then watched 4 or 5 games back to back, and I found so many examples of crossing from the right to the back post. And you're thinking, all right, so we're talking 5 or 6 hours work at this point, right? Then I've clipped it all, and I've gone in and I've seen Tommy. I went, look at this. So this is a pattern. Then he's like, right, brilliant. So then you show the players, look, you know, do this, that, you can do that. I have a chance to score. Go onto the training ground, we rehearse it and stuff, you know. So you're talking now probably 10 hours, right? And it got to half time and it was 0-0. And in the first half, we crossed from the right and to the back post, should have scored and didn't. And then we got into the positions, but no one was at the back post. And so at half time, basically the message was we were too busy trying to keep the ball, which was fine. It was hot, and you can argue with Tyron Spennymoor out, right? But also remember how we showed you can score. So 3 minutes into the second half, broken down the right, balls crossed, goal, 1-0. And that was beautiful for me, of having invested so much time in it. And then you score from a corner, then the third goal was an absolute worldie, but from a player we see do that often, so there's no shock that he did it, but the fact he's done it on the biggest stage is testament to him, a lad called Josh Barrett. But and listen, I've seen videos of when the goals are going in, the 20,000 Aldershot fans going mental. It's just greatest day.
That's a big number as well, isn't it, to travel? That's got to be a big population of Aldershot would have made that trip.
I think half the town.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention about Barnet at the back end of last season when they got promoted. And I was there. I was in the Barnet end, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I know that Aldershot, because I know that away end at Barnet, Aldershot definitely had the smallest amount. That corner was awful for you guys.
Well, we would normally take up to 1,000 fans to somewhere like
and
Barnet.
it would have been the whole stand behind the goal.
But there was some communication breakdown from Barnet, which they apologised for. Look, we got there and the whole day was set up for Barnet, right? And to the fact that the stand, where the dugouts are, the stand to the right, there's never anybody in it, right? They put away fans.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right, that was packed, right? And Tommy Woodrington said to me, I guarantee you, within 10 minutes of them going that way, he's going to give them a penalty.
And that's what exactly
They give them 2. Yeah, because the whole thing, and I'm not taking anything away from Barnet or Dean, best team in the league, fantastic, and they deserve it. But that whole day set up for Barnet to tonk us. And to be fair, good luck to them, it did. And said, with Dean especially, we want to speak on behalf of the guys that I work. We've all known Dean a long time, and we're delighted for him. And the table doesn't lie. You win the league because you're the best team, and they definitely were. They played some fantastic football.
I wanted to ask though specifically, when the celebrations are happening and all the people around onto the pitch, what happens to you as staff and as players? Are you just trying to rush your players off?
Well, the thing is, though, we've been told before the game, look, if we win the league today, we're going to try and hold people back, and we're going to try and.
They didn't do a very good job.
No, they don't. I get that, but we had no problems, to be fair, from the Barnet fans, because they wanted to celebrate with their players, and I get that. But we got off the pitch quite quickly. The best thing was I've gone into the bar in the Hive after with two others from the staff, and they've put up the price of a pint. And to be fair, it was like $7.50 for a can of something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, it was.
It was the last game of the season. One of the last games. So we thought, well, we'll have a beer, and we're all on the tube, right? And this guy's come over who plays for Barnet's walking team, veterans team, something like that. And he's put his membership card down and go, they ain't paying full whack. So we were getting our beers for a proper price. So a fair play to that bloke. I can't remember his name, but should he ever listen to this, what a guy. Thank you.
A last one from me then, coaching abroad. Is that something that you would consider to do if this offer came in?
Yes and no. I've got 2 children, 2 daughters, both, one's teenage, one's soon to be teenage. Never know when they're older. But no, right now that would, as much as you'd like to, that's not fair on them. It's unfair enough on them when I'm at Kings Lynn, or because it's quite far from home. And the fact
you didn't move house?
No.
Okay.
Or the fact that I'm away a lot with Aldershot. Particularly at the moment, we've got a lot of games. Before Christmas, so many of our overnighters are before Christmas. I think there's 2 after Christmas. So I'm away enough as it is, and I think the last thing they could do with is me
not being there.
Yeah, but you never say never when they're grown up and adults and stuff. You never say never.
But nothing beats though, like a Tuesday, Saturday, sleeping in a hotel with a team.
But someone said to me recently, because we went to Gateshead on a Saturday, then we went to Truro the following Wednesday. We played at home, and then we went to Carlisle, all in the space of 2 weeks. And someone said to me, I bet that's a pain. I went, why? A, it's my job. B, listen, I'm going away with, load of lads, me mates, as it were. Yeah. You're travelling up and down the country together. You're playing football. You're trying to help the players.
Free food?
Well, it's not free as such, because the club's still got to pay for everything.
Free for you though, isn't it?
Well, if you want to put it like that, it's like I've got free train travel, yeah. But no, listen, I love it, and I think it's a great way for the players to bond, and we'd never complain about it. When you lose, it can be a long way home, but listen, it is what it is.
I'm going to take the baton from Harry. Harry usually asks this question as a final one from me.
Yeah.
So hopefully I said this correctly. So when you look at your younger self compared to where you are now, am I right in saying this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is it proud? Are you proud? Are you happy of where you are now? Is that correct?
Yeah. So would 6-year-old you look to where you are now and think that I've done something? I've made an impact in the footballing world.
6-year-old me. Wow.
Well, okay.
Well,
any age under 10, perhaps.
Listen, that's a hard question to answer. The best people to answer to that would be people that I've worked with, and players that I've worked with. I do like to think that I've done things that people didn't think I was capable of or expect me to do. People that have known me all my life, they send me messages and they're nice things that they say to me, because I guess even just going to, like you said earlier, just even going to Wembley and coaching a team at Wembley and winning at Wembley, not everybody gets to say that, do they? So, but there's things. Listen, I'm closing on. I've kept count from the start. I'm closing in on 750 games as in a dugout, first team football, coach, manager, whatever role that I've played. So I've got plenty of life for me yet. I want to get to 1,000 games.
Okay.
Because not being a former pro, all that sort of stuff, and having to fight my way at times through the game, and still surviving it. If we get to 1,000. No, but
hopefully
you will.
You will. Of course you will. Yeah.
I want to try, but there's some other things I want to do. But Wembley was always on the bucket list. I'd like to go back to Wembley because obviously you've been there once. But one of my things is also centres around Gillingham. I'd love to coach Gillingham one day, but I know that's probably never going to happen. You never know. But I'd certainly like to draw them in a cup at Gillingham, try and beat them, obviously, just because I get loads of abuse from my mates behind the house that I've known all my life. Yeah.
Well, Hugo, that wraps up an episode. We always end on here with a handshake, so the camera's there. So thank you very much
No worries. Thanks for having me in.
Thank you very much.
Cheers,
Thank you
Harry.
very much, Hugo.
And thank you very
And
much.
Jamie.
Keep up the good work, you two. You know,
Thank you.
for those that don't know, by the way, these guys are students, and they set up their own podcast and invite people like me or people who've got stories to tell. So I think you deserve a lot of credit for that.
Thank you very much, yeah.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.